The rain attacked Portland that November night with sheets so thick the streetlights barely penetrated. Marcus Reed's Ford F-150 coughed through the storm windshield wipers, slapping a losing battle. The heater hadn't worked in 3 months. His breath came out in visible puffs mixing with old coffee smell and faint ghost of Sophie's strawberry shampoo from this morning's school drop-off. He should have been home 2 hours ago. The Thompson job had run late. 60-year-old furnaces held together by prayer didn't care about schedules. Mr. Thompson was 83 on a fixed income, choosing between heat and medication. Marcus had stayed because walking away felt like betraying everything his father taught him. Sarah, 3 years gone, and he could still hear her voice, still feel the weight of her final request pressing against his chest. Don't close your heart, Marcus. Don't let grief make you hard. Sophie needs to see you can still love, can still help others even when it hurts. The headlights caught something wrong. Marcus's foot hit the brake truck, skidding before stopping. Off the side, maybe 20 feet down, a car sat crumpled against a thick oak. Even through storm, he could tell it was expensive. The headlights flickered like dying steers and smoke began rising from the crushed hood. Black smoke. He was out before his brain caught up, rain immediately soaking him. Cold hit like a fist. November rain in the Pacific Northwest that numbed fingers in seconds. Marcus half ran, half slid down the embankment, mud sucking at his work boots. Blackberry thorns catching his jacket. Up close, the damage was worse. The front end had accordioned into the tree, glass scattered everywhere. Driver's side door crumpled inward, impossible to open. Through the shattered passenger window, he saw someone slumped in the driver's seat, long dark hair obscuring their face. No movement. "Hey, can you hear me?" Nothing. The smoke was getting thicker, smell of hot metal and burning plastic. Marcus yanked the passenger door. It groaned, then gave. He climbed in, glass crunching, reached across to unbuckle the seatbelt. Blood on the steering wheel, on the deflating airbag, a gash on the person's forehead, still bleeding. The person stirred. A woman's voice, soft groan. Marcus's fingers found the seatbelt clasp, slick with rain and blood. It released with a click. He hooked his arms under hers, trying to be gentle, though there wasn't time. She was surprisingly light, or maybe just adrenaline making him strong. He pulled her across the console. That's when he saw her face clearly. Even pale and blood-streaked, she was striking. Sharp cheekbones, full lips, features that belonged on magazine covers. Mid-30s with that particular polish that came from money and power. More smoke, thicker now. Marcus dragged her out, stumbling backward, nearly falling. She was coming around, making small sounds. He half carried, half dragged her up the embankment, boots slipping, lungs burning. They were maybe 15 feet from the car when it happened. A soft whump sound, and suddenly the vehicle was engulfed. Fire licking up despite the rain. Marcus felt the heat on his back as he reached the road, laying her down on wet asphalt as gently as shaking arms allowed. She was breathing, alive. He pulled out his phone. No signal. The nearest hospital was 30 minutes away in good weather. In this storm, an hour maybe. She was bleeding, her breathing growing labored. Marcus looked at his truck, then at the woman, then at the burning wreckage. Every instinct told him to wait, but the road was empty and she needed help now. He thought about Sophie sleeping safe, about Sarah making him promise to live fully, about his father dying helping a stranger. Marcus bent and carefully lifted the woman into his arms. The drive back felt like drowning. Marcus had one hand on the wheel, the other steadying her. She drifted in and out, mumbling words he couldn't catch. He kept talking. "Stay with me. Almost there." His house sat on the edge of a neighborhood that had seen better days 40 years ago. Small, boxy, $950 a month. Marcus pulled into the gravel driveway. Inside, Mrs. Walsh would be watching Sophie. He looked at the woman. She'd gone still again, face pale. This was insane. She moaned softly and fresh blood trickled. Marcus got out. Mrs. Walsh woke the moment he opened the door. She took one look and transformed from sleepy retiree to efficient nurse. "Guest room, now! Sophie's sleeping. Go!" Marcus's guest room was barely big enough for the twin bed his bed since Sophie had the bedroom. He laid the woman down, her dark hair fanning across his pillow. Mrs. Walsh appeared with first aid kit, warm water, clean towels. 70 years old, and her fingers were steadier than his. Concussion, probably. That cut needed stitches, but I did my best. She should wake up soon. When she does, take her to a real hospital. Thank you. Mrs. Walsh studied him. You did a good thing tonight. Don't overthink it. Did I? You saved someone's life. That's always good, even when it's complicated. She patted his shoulder on her way out. Marcus sat in his kitchen listening to the rain ease, wondering if Mrs. Walsh was right. He must have fallen asleep on the couch because next thing he knew, sunlight was streaming through curtains and Sophie was standing next to him. Daddy, you slept in your clothes again. Marcus sat up quickly. Hey, sweetheart, what time is it? Almost 7. Mrs. Walsh said you had an adventure. Gap-toothed and bright-eyed with her mother's curls and his stubborn chin. Planet pajamas. Adventure. There's a lady in your room. She's sleeping. Sophie processed this. Is she nice? I don't know yet. Oh. She climbed onto the couch. Daddy, we're out of cereal. Of course they were. Marcus went through the motions, making toast with the last peanut butter, braiding her hair the way Sarah used to. Normal things that kept the strangeness at bay. Mrs. Walsh appeared at 7:30 to walk Sophie to the bus stop. She woke up about an hour ago, wouldn't tell me her name, but she's lucid. Scared, though. Scared? Waking up in a strange place. Be gentle, Marcus. After they left, Marcus stood in his kitchen trying to prepare himself. She appeared in the doorway before he could finish the thought. Marcus's breath caught. She was wearing his white t-shirt hanging to mid-thigh. Her dark hair was loose and damp, the gash-bandaged bruise forming purple against pale skin. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold, gray-blue, sharp as broken glass, assessing everything in a heartbeat. Dangerous eyes, despite vulnerability. Where am I? My house. Portland. You were in an accident. Your car went off the road. I pulled you out before it caught fire. She processed this without visible reaction. You brought me here instead of a hospital. Roads were flooded. Storm was too bad. You needed immediate help. My neighbor used to be a nurse. I see. She crossed her arms. Despite the borrowed t-shirt and bruises, she somehow managed to look intimidating. Thank you. If you'll tell me where my phone is, I'll arrange a car. Something about her tone made Marcus's jaw tighten. The voice of someone used to giving orders. Someone who thought everything was just another transaction. Your phone was destroyed in the crash, along with your purse, your car, and almost you. A flicker crossed her face. Then I'll need to borrow yours. It's charging, but you should eat something first. Get your bearings. I'm fine. You have a concussion. I said I'm fine. She stepped forward, wavered, steadied herself against the doorframe. Why the rush? You almost died. You can barely stand straight. I know this isn't the Ritz, but you're safe here. What's the harm in waiting? She studied him, and Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling of being analyzed. You don't know who I am. Should I? Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. No, I suppose not. She seemed to decide something. All right, I'll accept your hospitality for a few hours, but then I really do need to leave. Fair enough. Coffee? They sat at his kitchen table, scratched and wobbling. Marcus watched her cup the mug in both hands, taking small, measured sips like she was afraid of showing weakness. What's your name? She hesitated. Does it matter? I pulled you out of a burning car, brought you to my house, let you sleep in my bed. Yeah, I think I've earned a name. A hint of a smile. Elena. Marcus, nice to meet you. Sorry about the circumstances. Me too. She took another sip, eyes drifting around the kitchen. The cracked linoleum, ancient appliances, Sophie's crayon drawing on the refrigerator. Poor, the room said. Marcus waited for judgment. Instead, Elena said, You have a daughter. Sophie, she's 7. Does she know I'm here? Yeah, she wanted to know if you were nice. I told her I didn't know yet. that almost smile. And what's the verdict? Jury's still out. They drank coffee in silence that felt less hostile than before. Outside, the rain had stopped. Birds sang. I should call someone. Tell them where I am. People will be worried. Use my phone. It's in your room charging. She disappeared. Marcus tried not to listen, but walls were thin fragments, her voice low and urgent, speaking to someone named James. I'm fine. I'm safe. I'll explain later. Then another call, shorter, more clipped. When she emerged 20 minutes later, tension had left her shoulders. She'd found her pants. Marcus had washed them overnight. My assistant is arranging a car. It'll be here within the hour. Good. You should get checked at a hospital. I have a personal physician. He'll meet me at my hotel. Of course she did. They stood in awkward silence. Marcus had the strangest urge to ask her to stay. Thank you. For last night, this morning, all of it. Anyone would have done the same. No. She met his eyes. They really wouldn't have. Before Marcus could respond, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a checkbook. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach as she opened it, started writing. What are you doing? Compensating you for your time, your supplies, the inconvenience. Stop. She looked up. Excuse me. I don't want your money. The words came out harder than intended. Something hot and angry was building in his chest. Don't be ridiculous. You clearly need it, and I clearly owe you. You don't owe me anything. I didn't pull you out of that car for a payday. I didn't bring you here because I thought there was a check in it. I did it because you needed help and I was there. That's it. That's the whole story. Everyone needs money. Yeah, I need money. You know what else I need? To be able to look my daughter in the eye and know I did the right thing for the right reasons. To not teach her that kindness is something you sell to the highest bidder. His hands shook. He balled them into fists. So put your checkbook away. You want to thank me? Just say thank you and walk out that door. That's payment enough. Elena stared like he'd spoken a foreign language. Her pen had gone still, whole body frozen. I don't understand. I know you don't. That's the saddest part. The silence was heavy. Elena slowly closed her checkbook, put it away. The pen disappeared. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to insult you. You didn't know better. Different worlds, right? Different worlds. They didn't speak much after. Elena retreated to wait for her car. When the black sedan pulled up, sleek and expensive, so out of place, Elena emerged in her cleaned clothes. She paused at the door. Marcus? Yeah. Thank you for seeing me as a person who needed help, not an opportunity. She held his gaze. I won't forget it. Then she was gone. Life went back to normal. Marcus picked up Sophie from school, made dinner, helped with homework. He took odd jobs. He juggled bills. Normal, familiar. Except he couldn't stop thinking about Elena. Not romantic, just the shock in her eyes when he'd refused money. Different worlds. She'd probably forgotten him. 3 days later, Mrs. Walsh showed up with her tablet, face pale. Marcus, you should see this. She pulled up a news article. The headline made his heart stop. Hartwell Industries CEO Elena Hartwell missing following car accident. Professional headshot. Elena in a power suit, looking every inch the billionaire executive. Definitely her. Marcus read, eyes widening. Elena Hartwell, 36, CEO of Hartwell Industries, one of the largest tech conglomerates in the Pacific Northwest. Personal net worth $2.1 billion. Missing after her car was found burned. No signs of foul play, but no sign of Ms. Hartwell. Family and colleagues deeply concerned. Details about her company's valuation, her reputation as ruthless but brilliant. This is the woman you saved? Yeah, that's her. Marcus, she's worth billions, and you just let her walk out without demanding a reward. He pushed the tablet back. I did the right thing. The right thing would be collecting a reward for Sophie's future, or teaching Sophie that some things are more important than money. Mrs. Walsh sighed. You're impossible, just like your father. She left. Marcus stood in his doorway. Elena Hartwell, CEO. billionaire, and he'd given her coffee in a chipped mug and refused her check. Marcus started laughing. The cosmic joke. Of course she was. His laughter faded as he remembered her face, the genuine confusion. Different worlds. 4 days later, his phone rang at 11 p.m. Unknown number. Marcus Reed. Yeah, it's Elena. Long pause. I saw the news. I wanted you to know I'm safe, and I didn't tell anyone the truth. Why not? Because what you did, it doesn't fit the narrative people expect. That everything has a price, that kindness is transactional. Pause. I'd like to see you again, if that's all right. Why? Because you showed me something I thought I'd lost. 2 days later, they met at a coffee shop far from downtown. Elena arrived in jeans and sweater, no makeup, hair and ponytail. Younger, more vulnerable. I've been thinking about what you said about doing the right thing. She wrapped hands around her mug. I grew up poor, Marcus, dirt poor. Mother left when I was 14. Father was gone before that, lost to addiction. I raised myself on 3 jobs and a full scholarship. I know what it's like to choose between food and heat, to wear the same shoes until they have holes. She looked at him. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to be helpless, to need help, to accept it. When you refused my check, something broke in me, or maybe something fixed. Why are you telling me this? Elena pulled out a folder. Because I want to start something. Help families like yours, like mine used to be. There are hundreds of charities. Not like this, no applications, no proving you're deserving enough. Just help. Fast, dignified, no strings. Marcus opened the folder. Legal documents, financial projections, mission statements about dignity. What does this have to do with me? Elena leaned forward. I'm starting the Reed Fund, named after you, and I want you to help me run it. What? No, I can't. I don't need qualifications. I need understanding. You know what people need because you've lived it. You understand the difference between charity and dignity. I need someone who will tell me no when I'm wrong. Someone who sees me as a person first. Marcus wanted to refuse, but he thought about families like his struggling. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. Elena handed him a business card. But Marcus, people are suffering right now. Every day we wait is another family falling through the cracks. That night, Marcus sat with Sophie as she ate cereal for dinner because groceries had run out. She chattered about school. Daddy, what's wrong? Someone offered me a job helping people, but it's complicated. Sophie's face scrunched. Helping people is good, right? Yeah, but then why is it complicated? Mommy used to say when someone needs help and you can help, you help, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard. Marcus's eyes burned. Sarah had said that, making him promise to stay open. He pulled Sophie into a hug. Later, after Sophie was asleep, Marcus pulled out Elena's business card. He should think longer. But Sarah's voice was in his head and Sophie's words. He typed, I'm in, but I have conditions. Reply within seconds. Name them. No one gets treated like a charity case, ever. Dignity first always. Agreed. No photo ops with struggling families. Their stories are theirs. Agreed. If I think we're doing more harm than good, I can pull the plug. Final say on how we help people. Longer pause. That's a lot of power to give someone you barely know. In my world, trust is earned by action. You showed me you can be trusted when you accepted my no. Pause. Agreed. Partners. Marcus looked around his small kitchen. At the crayon drawings, at the life he'd built, thought about Sophie asleep, about Sarah's promise, about families who needed someone to see them as people. One more thing, I'm still fixing furnaces. I won't take your money for doing what's right. I wouldn't expect anything less. Partners. Marcus took a breath. Partners. 3 weeks into the partnership, Marcus stood on the 34th floor of Hartwell Industries and felt like a fraud. The conference room was glass and steel. His shirt was obviously cheap compared to the tailored suits. Elena sat at the head, transformed. Hair in severe bun charcoal suit. She'd been speaking about the Reed Fund's scholarship structure. Gerald Whitmore sat 3 seats down, fountain pen on leather portfolio. 55 Vice President of Operations, every inch Ivy League. The scholarship proposal made Marcus's jaw tighten. High-achieving students only, GPA above 3.5, measurable success metrics, everything designed to help kids already going to make it. Marcus listened to 3 more slides. This is missing the point. Temperature dropped. Gerald set his pen down. I'm sorry. The scholarship only helps kids already on track. What about the ones who won't make it that far? The kids working part-time to help parents. Ones whose test scores suffer because they're hungry. You're helping the almost made it. I'm talking about the barely hanging on. Gerald's expression suggested he was explaining basic concepts to a slow child. That's not fiscally responsible. We need measurable ROI. People aren't investments. If we're only helping the ones already going to succeed, we're not actually changing anything. Someone gasped. Gerald's face went red. Elena spoke. He's right. Every head swiveled. Miss Hartwell, Marcus is right. We're building this to help people actually struggling, not to pad statistics. If that means messier metrics, so be it. She turned sharp eyes on each executive. Anyone with a problem can leave now. Nobody moved. Good. James reworked the structure based on Marcus's input. Friday, dismissed. The exodus was swift. Gerald shot Marcus a look of pure loathing. Alone, Elena smiled. You made an enemy today. He seemed predisposed to hate me. Gerald doesn't like outsiders. She walked to the windows. Second thoughts? Nah. Good. You said what needed to be said. That's why I need you here. Before Marcus could respond, James appeared. Miss Hartwell, your mother called. She said she'd wait in your office. Something flickered across Elena's face. Of course she did. To Marcus, want to meet my mother? Catherine Hartwell sat examining her manicure. 60-something fighting, aging with every weapon money could buy. When she looked up, her eyes were Elena's but colder. Elena, darling. Finally. Her gaze slid to Marcus, assessing. And you've brought a friend. Mother, this is Marcus Reed. Marcus, my mother, Catherine Hartwell. Marcus extended his hand. Catherine's handshake was limp brief. Reed, you're the inspiration for this little charity project. I'm working with Elena to help struggling families. How noble. Catherine turned to Elena. Darling, we need to talk about this foundation nonsense. The board is concerned. The board doesn't get a vote on my personal fortune. Don't be naive. Everything you do reflects on the company. This bleeding heart crusade is making investors nervous. You're absolutely right, Mother. Elena's voice was smooth. Marcus's head whipped toward her. She was smiling steel underneath. This foundation is making people nervous. Good. It's challenging the narrative that wealth is meritocracy. It's uncomfortable. Change always is. Catherine's eyes narrowed. You're being deliberately difficult. I'm being authentic. Elena moved behind her desk. If you'll excuse me, I have work to do. Catherine stood slowly. You're making a mistake, Elena. This man is going to drag you down. When he's gotten what he wants, you'll have nothing but scandal. Marcus's voice was quiet. Or maybe she's bringing herself back to a level where she can see people who need help. Maybe that's not down, Mrs. Hartwell. Maybe it's up. Catherine's look could have frozen fire. She left. Elena sank into her chair. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. That was the most honest thing anyone said to your mother in decades. She's not wrong about scandal. People are already talking. Elena pulled up her laptop, showed him a blog. Ice Queen finds her heart checkbook follows. Do you care? This is my reputation. If people think this is vanity, we lose credibility. Marcus sat across from her. Then we prove them wrong. Help people with dignity. Show results that matter. Let them talk. The work will speak for itself. You really believe that? I have to. They spent 2 hours hammering out details. A rent assistance initiative, no applications. Just help offered quickly. Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number, female voice trembling. Is this Marcus Reed? From the Reed Fund, I saw the information and She broke. I'm sorry, this is stupid. Marcus's repair instincts kicked in. Hey, it's okay. Take a breath. Tell me what's going on. Rachel Torres, 29, single mother of two, working while finishing nursing school. Ex stopped child support. Car died. 3 weeks from eviction. Can you help me? The website said no applications, but that can't be real. Give me your address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He called Elena while driving. By the time he finished, she'd arranged emergency transfer rental car mechanic appointment. Rachel's apartment was in a tired building. She opened the door looking like she'd been crying. 2 kids peeked behind her. Marcus sat at her kitchen table and explained. Rent assistance 3 months, car repair covered, grocery stipend, childcare vouchers. Rachel kept asking for the catch. No catch. When you're stable, help someone else struggling. That's it. She broke down crying. Her kids started crying. Marcus had to step outside because he was crying too. When he made it to his truck, hands shaking, he called Elena. How did it go? You should have seen her face, like we'd handed her a life raft. That's exactly what we did. I forgot what this feels like. Actually helping someone. We're going to do a lot more. James says we've had 47 calls today. Do we have funding? For 400, and if we run out, I'll add more. Over 3 weeks, the Reed Fund exploded, hundreds of requests. Local news ran a story. Rachel described how one phone call changed everything. Marcus worked 80-hour weeks still fixing furnaces because pride wouldn't let him take salary. Foundation meetings, visiting families, 3 a.m. calls. He and Elena fell into rhythm. Weekly coffee, late-night calls. Partnership that felt natural. Sophie noticed. Daddy, you smile different when you talk about Miss Elena. Marcus was helping with homework. What do you mean? Like happy. Like when you talk about mommy. Marcus changed the subject, but Sophie's words stayed. Thursday morning, Marcus picked Sophie up. Parents were whispering. Principal Davidson called him in. Mr. Reed, there's a situation. She showed her phone. PortlandPulse.com, headline, Billionaire's Walk of Shame, Elena Hartwell and her blue-collar boy toy. Photo unmistakable. Elena leaving his house early morning wearing his t-shirt. Context, the public didn't have late planning session, Elena stayed on couch. The article painted Marcus as gold digger. Foundation was cover for affair. Elena was unstable. Sources describing her as brilliant woman whose emotions overrode judgment. They'd found Rachel twisted her words. Sophie was confused. Daddy, why are people saying mean things? Marcus knelt. Some people make up stories when they don't understand something real. That's dumb. Yeah, baby, it really is. Elena called, voice tight. I'm so sorry. Where are you? My hotel, Marcus, they're calling me desperate. And you, they're saying you're using me. They twisted Rachel's words. Donations are dropping. That evening, war room. Elena James, Patricia Chen. Elena's lawyer and David Morrison from PR. Patricia, we could sue, but that makes it bigger. James suggested statement. Marcus, no statement, no response. We don't control the narrative, but we don't feed it. We keep helping families, document success, redirect to the work. James considered. That's not terrible. Patricia shook her head. Or looks desperate. Elena, only if we make it look desperate. We stay focused. Let actions speak. Next week was hard. Grocery store where woman said some men would do anything for money. Hardware store clerk refusing service. Constant stares. Sophie felt it too. Principal called Tuesday. Mr. Reed, there's been an incident. Sophie punched Tommy Mitchell. Marcus arrived. Sophie in office, arms crossed. Tommy with bloody nose. Story came out. Tommy repeated his mother's words. Sophie told him to stop 3 times, but he kept saying it, called Marcus bad daddy and Sophie. She broke down crying. I'm sorry, I know violence isn't the answer. Principal was sympathetic. Given circumstances, warning only. Marcus held his daughter, feeling rage and helplessness. That night after Sophie slept, Marcus sat seriously considering giving up. Nathan had offered $2 million. Phone buzzed. Elena. You okay? Define okay. She called. I heard about Sophie. Not your fault. Isn't it? Silence then. I need to ask something. Is this foundation going to put a target on Sophie's back? She's your line. Honest answer, I don't know. Okay. At least you're being honest. I'm not walking away, but I need you to promise if things get dangerous, you tell me immediately. Deal. They talked until midnight. When they hung up, Marcus felt steadier. Next morning brought visitor, silver Mercedes. The man who emerged was polished 40-something. Marcus Reed, Nathan Hartwell, Elena's brother. Mind if we talk? Every instinct screamed danger. Marcus invited him in. Nathan settled on the couch. Cozy. What do you want? Let me be direct. My sister is brilliant but naive about people. She wants to see the best in everyone. It's admirable. It's also dangerous. What's your point? I've seen men like you before, working class struggling, then wealthy woman appears. I'm not judging. But if you hurt my sister, I will destroy you. Heat rose in Marcus's chest. He stood. Get out. Just looking out for family. No, you're looking out for yourself. Marcus opened the door. Elena's smarter than you think. Nathan paused. Everyone needs protection, even you. How's your daughter, Sophie? Cute kid. Be a shame if this situation affected her negatively. Kids can be cruel. Marcus's hands shook with effort not to hit him. Nathan pulled out business card. If you change your mind about taking payout and walking away, call me. $2 million. Then he was gone. Marcus stood breathing hard. He should tell Elena, but telling her would start war in her family. He picked up Nathan's card, walked to kitchen, fed it into garbage disposal. The grinding was satisfying. 2 months into the foundation's existence, Marcus sat outside the Hartwell Industries boardroom while Elena's future was decided. She'd insisted he not attend. Better if you stay out of this. But he'd come anyway, couldn't stay away when he knew what was at stake. The hallway was all marble and glass, the kind of corporate luxury that made his work boots feel like a statement of defiance. Other executives passed their glances, sliding over him with barely concealed contempt. The handyman who'd somehow talked his way into their world, who was probably sleeping with their CEO who didn't belong. James Cho emerged after 2 hours, his normally composed face showing cracks. They voted her out. The world tilted sideways. Gerald had the votes he needed, 16-9. She's no longer CEO of Hartwell Industries. James's voice was tight with controlled fury. They used the foundation as justification, said she was distracted, that her judgment was compromised, that the scandal with you was affecting company performance. It's bullshit, but it's done. Marcus pushed past him into the boardroom. Empty now, except for Elena at the far end packing a cardboard box with methodical precision. Personal items, framed photos from ribbon-cutting ceremonies, awards she'd won over 15 years. A small plant someone had given her that she'd somehow kept alive despite everything. Her face was composed, but Marcus could see the cracks forming around her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly before she stilled them. You shouldn't be here. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Neither should you. This is your company. You built this. Was my company, past tense. She picked up a crystal award, something about innovation, and set it carefully in the box. Turns out board members don't appreciate CEOs who prioritize people over quarterly earnings. Who would have thought? Her voice cracked on the last word. Elena, don't. She held up a hand. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. Don't tell me this is for the best. Don't give me platitudes about how doors close and windows open or whatever bullshit people say when everything falls apart. Marcus crossed to her, took the box gently from her hands, set it on the conference table. Then he did something he'd never done before, crossing a line they'd both been careful not to acknowledge. He pulled her into a hug. For a moment she resisted, her body rigid with the effort of holding everything together. Then something broke and she collapsed against him, silent sobs shaking her entire frame. Marcus just held her, one hand on her back, feeling her pain and fury and grief soak into his shirt. I gave up everything for this, she whispered against his shoulder. Everything. I know. The foundation bringing you in, trying to actually help people instead of just maximizing shareholder value. This is my fault. I destroyed my own career. Stop. Marcus pulled back enough to look at her. This is not your fault. This is them punishing you for having a conscience, for remembering what it's like to be human. She laughed bitterly, wiping her eyes with impatient hands. A lot of good my conscience did me. Lost me a position I spent 15 years building, a salary of $5 million a year. Respect, influence, power all gone because I decided to give a damn about people. Then her expression changed, something like wonder mixing with the grief. Do you know how much money I made when they forced me out severance package $80 million? Stock options. I'm cashing out another $120 million, plus my personal trust fund that I've been building since the company went public, $800 million. She looked at Marcus with eyes that were red but fierce. I have enough money to fund the Reed Fund for the next 20 years at current levels. Minimum. I don't have to answer to a board anymore, don't have to worry about quarterly earnings or shareholder lawsuits or any of it. For the first time in my adult life, I'm actually free. Despite everything, Marcus found himself laughing. The absurdity of it, losing a job that paid millions and ending up richer and freer than before. Elena joined in, the sound bitter and relieved and overwhelmed all at once. The door burst open with enough force to make them both jump. Nathan Hartwell strode in, his face flushed with triumph, barely masked by concern. Well, well, the fallen queen and her loyal subject. His eyes landed on Marcus and Elena standing close together, her hand still on Marcus's arm from where he'd steadied her. Nathan's smile turned vicious. How touching. Literally. Elena dropped her hand but didn't step back. What do you want, Nathan? To offer my congratulations, of course. You successfully torpedoed your career for a charity case and a man who's clearly using you for access to your money. I'm impressed, actually. I didn't think even you could self-destruct this thoroughly. He moved closer, circling like a shark. I offered him cash to disappear, you know. $2 million clean and simple, but he refused. Very clever of you, Marcus. The long game pays better, doesn't it? Get her fired, isolated from family and colleagues, dependent on you for emotional support and validation. Then move in for the real payday. Something hot and dangerous rose in Marcus's chest. He'd spent his entire life avoiding violence, had Sophie to think about, couldn't risk the consequences. But watching Nathan poison the one good thing in his life with calculated cruelty. His voice came out quiet, which somehow made it more threatening. You want to know the truth? Nathan's smirk faltered slightly. I didn't want Elena's money, still don't. Didn't want this position consulting on the foundation, didn't want any of this to get complicated the way it has. Marcus took a step forward, had the satisfaction of seeing Nathan take a small step back. I wanted to pull a stranger from a burning car and go back to my simple life. But your sister, she's the most stubborn, infuriating, brilliant person I've ever met. She refused to let me disappear. She dragged me into this mess because she actually gives a damn about people, which is apparently a foreign concept in your family. He took another step. You think I'm using her? I've turned down every financial offer you and she have made except for one house. And that was only because Sophie needed stability. I don't take a salary from the foundation. Still fix furnaces to pay my bills, still choose my pride over profit every single day. So whatever story you're telling yourself to justify your jealousy and your greed, it's just that. A story. Marcus moved close enough that Nathan had to look up slightly. And you want to know the real reason you're here, why you're so desperate to destroy this? Because you can't stand that Elena found something that matters more than the company. More than quarterly profits. More than stock prices, more than you. She chose helping people over making you richer, and that's what you actually can't forgive. Nathan's face had gone an interesting shade of red, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You think you're noble, you're just too stupid to capitalize on opportunity when it's handed to you on a silver platter. Maybe. Or maybe I understand something you never will, that some things matter more than money. Like integrity. Like actually caring about people instead of seeing them as assets to exploit or obstacles to remove. Nathan's vicious smile returned, but there was something brittle about it now. You two deserve each other. The bleeding heart billionaire and the self-righteous handyman playing at being saviors. I give it 6 months before this whole charade implodes and you both realize you're from different worlds that were never meant to intersect. She'll go back to her world of money and power, and you'll go back to fixing toilets for a living, and all of this will be nothing but an embarrassing chapter you both try to forget. He straightened his tie, composure returning. When that happens, and it will, don't come crawling back expecting sympathy or help. You made your choices, live with the consequences. He slammed the door on his way out, the sound echoing in the empty boardroom. In the silence that followed, Elena sank into her former chair, suddenly looking fragile in a way Marcus had never seen before. He's not wrong. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. About what? About us being from different worlds. About this being unsustainable. She looked up at him, tears still wet on her face. I think I've destroyed my career, alienated my family, attached myself to a man who probably wishes I'd never crashed my car on that rainy night. I think Nathan's absolutely right. This was always going to implode eventually. We were just too caught up in the mission to see it coming. Do you want it to? Marcus heard himself ask. To implode, to end this before it gets more complicated than it already is. But before Elena could answer, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Is this Marcus Reed from the Reed Fund? The voice was unfamiliar, female professional. This is Sarah Morrison from Channel 8 News. We'd like to get your comment on allegations from David and Kim Patterson regarding the Reed Fund's practices and your relationship with Elena Hartwell. Marcus's blood ran cold. He pulled up his phone's browser with shaking hands, typed in the news station's website. The headline made his stomach drop through the floor. Reed Fund Scam Family Reveals Disturbing Truth About Foundation's Real Purpose. The article featured photos of David and Kim Patterson looking earnest and betrayed the kind of carefully staged shots that tabloids loved. Marcus remembered them clearly, the couple the foundation had helped 6 weeks ago. Kim had called sobbing, talking about how medical debt was destroying their family, how they were 3 days from eviction, how their kids were going to end up on the street because David's factory job didn't cover the emergency room bills from their daughter's appendicitis. Marcus had gotten them help in 3 hours. $12,000 for medical bills, $3,000 for rent assistance to keep them housed. No applications, no requirements, no strings attached. Just help when they needed it most. The article told a different story. According to the Pattersons, Marcus had pressured them for glowing testimonials. The foundation had used their story for publicity without consent. The money came with strings, requirements to attend events, participate in photo opportunities, be available for media interviews. They felt exploited, manipulated, used to make rich people feel good about themselves while their actual problems went unsolved. Every single word was a lie. Marcus tried calling the number Kim had given him. Disconnected. He tried David's cell. Same thing. Elena's lawyer, Patricia, found out later through contacts that the Pattersons had been paid $50,000 by the tabloid for an exclusive interview. $50,000 to destroy the foundation that had given them 15. They disappeared after cashing the check. New address, new phone numbers vanished like smoke. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, the same scratched surface where he'd refused Elena's first check, where this whole thing had started with principles and pride, and felt something fundamental break inside him. Not anger exactly, though there was plenty of that. Something deeper. A faith in basic human goodness that he'd held onto despite everything. Despite Sarah's death and financial struggles and all the times people had let him down. He'd believed that helping people mattered. That kindness was its own reward. That most people, when given help without strings, would pay it forward instead of cashing in. He'd been wrong. Tommy Chen found him there an hour later, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. 55 years old, Marcus's co-worker for a decade, the closest thing he'd had to a father figure since Jack Reed died helping a stranger fix their car in a snowstorm 15 years ago. Tommy had a key for emergencies, used it now without asking. Saw the news. Figured you'd need someone. Marcus didn't look up. His voice came out flat dead. I helped them, Tommy. Kim was crying when she called. Actual tears. Talking about how she couldn't feed her kids, couldn't keep the lights on, couldn't afford to keep them all together. I got her help in 3 hours. 3 hours from desperate call to money in their account. And the only thing I asked, the only thing was that she help someone else when she was back on her feet. Tommy pulled out a chair, sat down without invitation. And she sold you out for 50 grand. Yeah. That hurt like hell. Marcus finally looked up and Tommy could see the devastation in his eyes. What if Nathan's right? What if I'm just naive, thinking kindness matters more than money, that people are fundamentally good, that helping is worth the risk of being betrayed? Tommy was quiet for a long moment, his weathered hands folded on the table in that way he had when he was thinking carefully about what to say. You know what your dad used to say back when we worked together before you were born? Marcus shook his head. He said, Tommy, not everyone you help is gonna be grateful. Some folks are just trying to survive, and survival makes people do ugly things. Makes them bite the hand that feeds them if they think there's a bigger hand somewhere else offering more. But he also said that don't mean you stop helping. It means you help anyway, knowing full well that some will betray you, because the ones who don't, the ones who take that help and use it to build something better, they're worth it. Every single time. Tommy leaned forward. Your daddy wasn't naive. He knew people. Knew them better than most because he'd been in the trenches with them, seen them at their worst and their best. And he still chose to help, still chose kindness over cynicism. And you know what happened when he died? What? 300 people came to his funeral. 300. People he'd helped over the years, people who remembered that Jack Reed was there when no one else was. They didn't come because he was rich or important or powerful. They came because he saw them as human beings worth helping, no strings attached. You think that's naive? The silence stretched between them, heavy with meaning. No, Marcus finally whispered. Tommy squeezed his shoulder, stood. Then stop second-guessing yourself. Stop letting one bad apple make you forget about the 88 good ones. You're Jack Reed's son. Time to start acting like it. After Tommy left, Marcus sat in the silence for another 20 minutes before his phone rang again. Elena. I saw the article. Every family we've helped is now going to be questioned. Foundation's credibility is shattered. Not every family. Elena's voice was tight but controlled. I've been getting calls. 15 families have offered to speak publicly in our defense, including Rachel Torres. She read some of the messages. The Pattersons don't speak for us. We know what this foundation really does. Reed Fund changed my life, and I'll testify to that anywhere, anytime. Tell me when and where you need me. I'll be there. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Not everyone would betray you. Most people were fundamentally good. You just had to trust that, even when it hurt. We fight back. How? Elena asked. We can't just ignore this. The media's already running with it. Donors are pulling out. Volunteers are quitting. We don't fight against the Pattersons. Marcus interrupted, his voice gaining strength. They're just desperate people who made a bad choice. We fight against everyone who thinks this foundation is a scam. We fight against the narrative that helping people is naive, that kindness is weakness, that anyone who tries to do good is secretly running some kind of con. Okay, but how? We hold a press conference. Get those 15 families to testify about their real experiences, show the actual impact we've made, show receipts, show outcomes, show the truth. Marcus took a breath, and we prove that Nathan fabricated those embezzlement documents he threatened me with. Because he's absolutely going to release them now that we're vulnerable. Silence on the other end. What embezzlement documents? The ones showing I've been stealing from the foundation. He showed them to me when he visited my house, said he'd release them if I didn't walk away. I figured he was bluffing. Nathan doesn't bluff, Marcus. If he has documents, then we better move fast. The next morning, Marcus woke to his phone ringing at 6:47 a.m. Unknown number, professional female voice. Mr. Marcus Reed. Yeah, who's this? Agent Sarah Morrison, IRS Criminal Investigation Division. We need to talk about the Reed Fund's financial records, specifically about some concerning transfers we've been made aware of. Ice water flooded Marcus's veins. He turned on the TV, breaking news on every channel. The headline burned itself into his vision. Reed Fund under investigation, documents show $380,000 in unreported payments to founder Marcus Reed. The news anchors discussed him like he was already guilty, like it was a done deal, like the trial was just a formality. Financial documents obtained by unnamed sources showing that Marcus Reed had received substantial payments through shell companies in Delaware and Nevada. Wire transfers, consulting fees, bonuses, expense reimbursements. $380,000 over 3 months, all unreported, all hidden. Embezzlement disguised as charitable work. The IRS and State Attorney General were investigating. If convicted, Marcus faced 5 to 10 years in federal prison. The documents looked completely real, detailed, professional, the kind of thing that would stand up to initial scrutiny. Nathan's masterpiece. The calculation was clear and brutal. Marcus couldn't afford the kind of lawyers who could fight this properly. Elena's reputation was already damaged by scandal. The foundation would collapse under the weight of investigation. Even if they eventually proved innocence, the damage would be done. Donors gone, families afraid to accept help, the mission destroyed. And during the investigation, Marcus would almost certainly lose Sophie to Child Protective Services. Single father under federal investigation for embezzlement couldn't be trusted with a child's welfare. Nathan had found the nuclear option. The IRS agent's voice was clipped, professional, allowing no room for emotion. Mr. Reed, we need you to come to our office today at 2 p.m. You're welcome to bring legal counsel if you have it. These documents are fake. I never received any of those payments. Someone's framing me. That's what we need to verify, sir. 2 p.m. Don't leave town. The line went dead. 2 hours later, Marcus's house had become a war room for the second time. Elena, James, Tommy, and Patricia Chen on video call, her face grim. Documents are sophisticated, Patricia said without preamble. Whoever Nathan hired to create these knew exactly what they were doing. These aren't amateur forgeries. They'll stand up to initial investigation. Can you prove they're fake? Yes, but it takes time. Digital forensics analysis, paper trail verification, banking records reconciliation. I'll need to bring in specialists, maybe 3 days minimum, to build an airtight case. James shook his head, his usual calm cracking. 3 days might be too long. Foundation's already lost 80% of volunteers in the last hour. Major donors are calling to pull funding. Our hotline went from 50 calls a day to 3 this morning. People are scared to be associated with us. Elena was pale but controlled, her hands folded on the table to hide the trembling. We're watching everything we built collapse in real time. Months of work, 89 families helped, all of it being destroyed because Nathan couldn't stand that I chose people over profit. Marcus stood pacing the small kitchen like a caged animal. Nathan's counting on us, panicking, turning on each other, giving up, making mistakes because we're scared. We can't give him that satisfaction. What do we do? Elena's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Marcus turned to Patricia on the screen. Can you have proof these documents are fake ready by tomorrow afternoon? Not perfect, not airtight, but enough to show reasonable doubt. If I work through the night call in every favor I have, pull my entire team off other cases, maybe. Do it, whatever it costs. To James. Contact every single family we've helped, all 89. Ask if anyone's willing to speak publicly about their actual experience with the foundation. Don't pressure, don't guilt, just ask. Marcus, we can't ask them to put themselves in the crosshairs. We're not asking them to do anything, we're offering them a choice. Some will say no, and that's completely fine, but some might say yes, and their voices, their actual lived experiences, matter more than any fabricated document. To Elena, call a press conference. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Community center in Rachel's neighborhood, not some sterile hotel ballroom. The place where this actually matters. To say what? Marcus met her eyes. The truth. All of it. How we met, why you started the foundation, what it actually does, who we actually are. No spin, no PR damage control, no careful messaging, just raw, honest truth. Patricia shook her head on screen. That's incredibly risky. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court if this goes to trial. You're giving the prosecution ammunition. Let them use it, Marcus said quietly. At least it'll be the truth instead of Nathan's lies. At least it'll be us controlling our own story instead of letting him write it for us. Elena studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, let's do it. That evening, after everyone had left and the war planning was done, Marcus had to do the hardest thing yet. He had to tell Sophie. She sat on the couch, 7 years old, her gap-toothed smile already fading as she read his face. Daddy, are you going to jail? The question broke something in him. He sat down next to her, pulled her close. I hope not, baby. I really hope not. But some people are lying about me, saying I did bad things with money and I have to prove they're wrong. Will I have to go live somewhere else, like foster care? Her voice was so small, so scared. Someone at school had obviously been talking. Marcus pulled her onto his lap, breathing in her strawberry shampoo, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. Not if I have anything to say about it. I'm fighting for us, Sophie. Fighting to prove I didn't do anything wrong. Fighting to keep us together. Fighting to keep helping people who need it. She was quiet for a long moment, then pulled back to look at him with eyes that were too old, too knowing for 7. Sarah's eyes. Mommy said you're the bravest person she knew. She said you always do the right thing even when it's hard, even when people don't understand. Tears ran down Marcus's face, hot and unchecked. I'm trying, baby. God, I'm trying so hard. Sophie's voice turned fierce, protective in a way that made her seem ancient. Then you'll win, because you're my daddy and my daddy doesn't lose when it matters most. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat on his porch at 2 a.m. watching Portland settle into the quiet hours, and his phone buzzed. Elena, you awake? Yeah, you can't stop thinking about tomorrow, about what we're risking. Me either. Marcus, if this goes wrong, if we lose everything, if I end up dragging you down with me. Stop, he typed quickly. You're not dragging me anywhere I didn't choose to go. We're in this together. Different worlds, remember, we're building a new one where both of us fit, where helping people matters more than protecting ourselves. Long pause. Then, I'm scared. Me too. But we do it anyway. Yeah, we do it anyway. They texted back and forth until 3 a.m., sharing fears and hopes and the strange intimacy of two people facing disaster together. When Marcus finally tried to sleep, he dreamed of fire and falling, of Sophie calling his name from somewhere he couldn't reach. He woke at 6, made coffee, tried to prepare himself for what was coming. This was it. The moment that would either prove everything they'd been working for or destroy it completely. His phone rang. Tommy. You ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's my boy. That's Jack Reed's son talking. Marcus thought about his father, dead 15 years from helping a stranger. Thought about Sarah making him promise to stay soft in a hard world. Thought about Sophie sleeping upstairs, trusting him to keep them safe and together. Different question, Marcus said. Do you think it's worth it, helping people even when they might betray you? Fighting for something good even when the cost might be everything? Tommy didn't hesitate. Every damn time. Because the alternative is becoming the kind of person Nathan is, and that's a cost neither you nor your daddy could ever afford to pay. After they hung up, Marcus stood in his kitchen and made a decision. Whatever happened at that press conference, whatever came after, he wouldn't compromise, wouldn't apologize for choosing kindness, wouldn't regret helping people who needed it. He was Jack Reed's son, Sarah's husband, Sophie's father. And he was done letting fear dictate his choices. Elena called at noon. Press conference is set. 17 families confirmed they'll be there. Patricia's flying in with preliminary evidence. James has the whole thing organized. Marcus, are you sure about this? Are you? Long pause. When you refused my money that first morning, you said some things don't have a price. I'm starting to understand what you meant. This foundation, what we're trying to do, it's priceless, worth fighting for even if we lose everything else. Then we fight. Together. Marcus looked around his small kitchen one more time at the life he'd built from grief and determination, at the choice he was about to make that could destroy it all or transform it into something bigger than he'd ever imagined. Together. The community center in Rachel Torres's neighborhood wasn't designed for press conferences. It was designed for after-school programs and neighborhood watch meetings, for potlucks and voter registration drives, for the everyday business of a community trying to survive. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the folding chairs were mismatched, and the linoleum floor showed years of wear. But Elena had insisted on this location, not some sterile hotel ballroom with its corporate anonymity and careful distance from real life. A place that actually meant something to the families they'd helped. Marcus stood in the men's bathroom at 1:45, staring at his reflection in the scratched mirror, feeling sick with nerves that went beyond simple anxiety into something that felt like his whole future balanced on the edge of the next hour. His hands were shaking so badly he'd had to try 3 times to button his shirt that morning. The cheap dress shirt he'd bought for funerals felt tight across his shoulders, restrictive, like it was trying to squeeze the air from his lungs. Mrs. Walsh found him there, her reflection appearing behind his in the mirror. "You're spiraling. Can you blame me? Everything I've built, everything Sophie needs, it all comes down to the next hour. If this goes wrong..." "Stop." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "Your daddy told me once, after a job had gone sideways and cost him money he didn't have. He said, 'Maureen, I can only control whether I do the right thing. If I do the right thing and it still goes wrong, at least I can look myself in the mirror. At least I can sleep at night knowing I didn't compromise who I am for convenience.'" "You understand what he was saying?" Marcus nodded, throat too tight for words. "You're doing the right thing, Marcus. Standing up here, telling the truth, fighting for people who need someone to fight for them. Jack would be proud of that. Sarah would be proud of that." She squeezed his shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong for a 70-year-old woman. "Now get out there and make them see what I see, a good man trying to help people, nothing more and nothing less." After she left, Marcus splashed cold water on his face, took 3 deep breaths, and walked out to face whatever was coming. The main room was packed beyond capacity, people standing along the walls when the chairs ran out. Reporters filled the front rows with their cameras and recording equipment, their faces showing various degrees of cynicism and curiosity. The lights were hot and bright, turning the space into something between a courtroom and a stage. 17 families sat in seats behind where Marcus and Elena would speak. Out of 89 families contacted, 17 had said yes. Not all, not even close to all, but enough to matter. In the very back, barely visible through the crowd and the lights, Nathan and Catherine Hartwell watched with expressions Marcus couldn't quite read from this distance. Nathan's face was carefully neutral, but there was something predatory in the way he leaned forward slightly, like he was waiting for a mistake he could exploit. Catherine sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else, but somehow obligated by family duty to witness this spectacle. Elena stepped to the microphone at exactly 2 p.m. Her hands shook slightly before she stilled them with visible effort, the kind of small gesture that spoke to how much this cost her. She wasn't wearing CEO armor today. No power suit carefully chosen to project authority. No perfectly styled hair designed to intimidate. Just herself in simple dark pants and a blue sweater, the bandage scar still faintly visible on her forehead from that night in the rain 3 months ago that had changed everything. "Thank you for coming. I'm going to tell you a story, and unlike most of the stories you've heard about me and Marcus this week, this one is actually true." She told it all. The crash in the November rain, her car wrapped around a tree like a fist had driven it there, the fire starting in the engine as smoke filled the air. Marcus pulling her out when he could have driven past, when most people would have told themselves someone else would handle it, when helping meant risking his own life for a stranger. His refusal of payment that had shocked her to her core, that had challenged everything she thought she knew about how the world worked. "I was furious," Elena said, her voice steady but carrying emotion underneath. "I couldn't understand why someone would refuse money when they clearly needed it. It didn't make sense in my worldview, where everything had a price, where every interaction was ultimately transactional. So I did what I always do when something doesn't make sense. I investigated him." A few reporters actually smiled at that, recognizing the CEO mindset even as she was describing it. "And I learned about his life, about being a single father struggling to make ends meet, about losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago and the medical bills that came with that, about working multiple jobs to keep his daughter fed and housed and in school, about choosing between electricity and groceries some months." Her voice caught slightly. "And I learned something else, something more important. I'd forgotten what it meant to be human. I'd spent 20 years building a company, accumulating wealth, achieving what the world calls success, and somewhere in there I forgot what it felt like to need help, to accept help, to be on the other side of privilege and power." She looked directly at Marcus, and the connection between them was so obvious that several cameras swiveled to capture his reaction. "He reminded me. So I started the Reed Fund not as a tax shelter or a vanity project or good PR for my image. I started it to pass on what he gave me that night in the rain: dignity in the face of struggle. The right to be helped without being judged, without being made to feel small, without having to prove you deserve basic human compassion." Elena held up the folder containing Nathan's fabricated documents. "These are the documents my brother created to make it look like I've been secretly paying Marcus through shell companies. They're very convincing. They were made by professionals who knew exactly what they were doing. They're also completely, utterly false. My attorney will prove that in a moment with forensic evidence." She paused, let the room absorb that, let the implication hang in the air. "But let's say for a moment they were real. Let's pretend I have been paying Marcus secretly for the past 3 months. Do you know what I would have been paying him for?" Several reporters leaned forward, recognizing this was the heart of her argument. For working 80-hour weeks, helping desperate families while still fixing furnaces to pay his own bills because he refuses to take a salary from the foundation. For taking calls at 3 a.m. from parents who don't know where next month's rent is coming from, and treating them with respect instead of judgment. For visiting every single person we've helped to make sure they're being treated with dignity, that no one on our staff is making them feel like charity cases. For teaching me how to see people instead of statistics, human beings. Instead of case numbers, individuals with stories instead of problems to be solved." Her voice strengthened with conviction. "For showing me what it means to actually help people instead of just writing checks and feeling good about myself. If I were paying him for all of that, for transforming my understanding of what wealth is actually for, it wouldn't be nearly enough. But I'm not paying him, because Marcus Reed doesn't do this for money. He does it because he remembers what it's like to be desperate, to be one crisis away from losing everything. And he can't stand the thought of anyone else feeling that helpless when he has the power to help." She stepped back, and the weight of her words hung in the air. Marcus moved to the microphone, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat, in his temples, in every nerve ending. He saw Sophie in the 3rd row with Mrs. Walsh. She'd insisted on being here despite his protests, had said she needed to see her daddy fight for what was right. Saw Tommy Chen giving him a thumbs up from the side. Took a deep breath that didn't quite fill his lungs. "I'm not good at public speaking, never have been. I'm better at fixing furnaces and explaining why your water heater isn't working than I am at talking to cameras and reporters. But I'm going to try." He looked directly at the cameras, tried to see past them to the people who would watch this. Later tried to speak to them instead of the equipment. "Everything Elena said is true. I pulled her from a burning car. She tried to pay me the next morning. I refused because taking money for it would have turned an act of mercy into a transaction. would have made it about profit instead of principle, and I can't live that way. Won't teach my daughter to live that way. His voice thickened with emotion he didn't try to hide. My wife Sarah died 3 years ago after a 2-year fight with cancer that we lost despite everything. Before she passed in those last few weeks when we both knew time was running out, she made me promise something. She said, "Marcus, don't close your heart. Don't let grief make you hard. Don't let losing me turn you into someone who walks past people who need help because you're too wrapped up in your own pain. Sophie needs to see you can still love, still care, still help others even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. That's how you honor my memory, by staying soft in a hard world that wants to make you bitter." Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Didn't care that cameras were capturing it. I've tried to keep that promise every single day since she died. Raising Sophie alone, struggling to pay bills and put food on the table, watching other families go through the same desperate situations we've faced and worse. When Elena offered me a chance to actually help those families instead of just sympathizing from a distance, I said yes. Not for money, I still fix furnaces full-time to pay my rent and buy groceries and keep the lights on. But because helping people is what Sarah would have wanted me to do, it's what Sophie needs to see her father doing. It's what makes life worth living when everything else feels like just surviving. He looked at the 17 families seated behind him, drew strength from their presence. The Reed Fund has helped 89 families in 3 months. 89 families who were about to lose their homes, their jobs, their hope in humanity. We've prevented 14 evictions, kept 12 kids in school who would have had to drop out, helped 8 people finish degree programs that will change their entire lives and their children's lives. And we did it without making anyone feel like charity cases, without judging them for needing help, without demanding they prove they deserved assistance by meeting arbitrary standards, because everyone deserves help when they're struggling. Everyone. No exceptions, no conditions, no strings attached. His final words were aimed directly at Nathan Hartwell in the back, though he didn't look at him, didn't give him the satisfaction of direct confrontation. So yes, I'm in a relationship with Elena Hartwell. Yes, she gave me a house because she saw where I was living and thought my daughter deserved better than a place where the heat doesn't work in winter. Yes, we care deeply about each other, and that relationship has grown from respect into something more. But that doesn't change the work we've done or invalidate the lives we've helped. And if you want to attack us for that, go ahead. Just know that every minute you spend focused on us is a minute you're not spending on the real story, that people are suffering in this city every single day, and most of society doesn't care until it makes good gossip for the evening news. Marcus stepped back, and before anyone else could move, Rachel Torres stood up from her seat. "Can I say something, please?" The moderator looked uncertain, but Elena nodded, and Rachel walked to the front with her 2 kids, now 6 and 8 years old, holding her hands tight like they were her anchors to reality. Every camera in the room swiveled toward them. Reporters leaned forward, sensing this was the moment that would make the story human instead of just scandalous. "My name is Rachel Torres. 3 months ago, I was 29 years old and about to fail completely at life." Her voice shook but grew stronger with each word. "I was going to lose my apartment because my car had died and I couldn't get to work without it. And my ex-husband had stopped paying child support, and I was trying to finish nursing school at night, which meant paying for childcare I couldn't afford. I was going to drop out of school 1 semester before finishing. I was going to fail my kids because I couldn't do it all alone anymore, no matter how hard I tried." Her kids squeezed her hands tighter, and she squeezed back, drawing strength from them. "Then I called the Reed Fund, not because I thought they'd help. I'd been turned down by every other charity in Portland. Catholic charities said I made too much money to qualify, even though I couldn't pay my bills. United Way said they didn't have funding for car repairs. The city assistance program said there was a 6-month waiting list, and I needed to provide 14 different documents to prove I qualified. So I called the Reed Fund because I literally had nowhere else to turn, and the website said no applications required. I figured it was too good to be true, but I was desperate enough to try anyway." She turned to look at Marcus, and her gratitude was so genuine it made several reporters shift uncomfortably. And you know what happened? Marcus showed up at my door within an hour of my call. 60 minutes. He didn't ask me to fill out forms or bring proof of income or explain why I'd gotten myself into this situation. Didn't lecture me about budgeting better or making smarter life choices or why hadn't I planned for emergencies. He just asked what I needed to get stable again and made it happen. 3 months rent assistance so I wouldn't get evicted, car repair covered completely, grocery vouchers so my kids could eat properly, childcare support so I could finish my last semester. Everything I needed to not fall through the cracks. Rachel's voice broke slightly. He treated me like a human being who deserved help, not like a problem to be managed or a case number to be processed. And because of that help, I graduated nursing school 2 weeks ago. I start work at Providence Hospital on Monday. In a few years, I'll be able to help other families the way the Reed Fund helped mine. She turned to look directly at Nathan Hartwell in the back. So when you call this foundation a scam, when you say Marcus and Elena are con artists running some kind of scheme, you're calling me a liar. You're calling my kids liars. You're calling the 88 other families they helped liars. You're saying none of our experiences matter, none of our gratitude is real, none of the help we received actually happened, and I won't stand for that. None of us will. One by one, the other families stood. It wasn't planned, wasn't rehearsed, just a spontaneous show of solidarity that was more powerful than any prepared statement could have been. James Wilson, a 45-year-old veteran with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much. The VA left me drowning in medical bills from injuries I got serving this country. Reed Fund paid them off in 48 hours. Didn't ask me to prove I was a good veteran or that I deserved help. Just helped because I needed it. Linda Martinez, a 38-year-old middle school teacher with kind eyes and tired shoulders. I got injured on the job trying to break up a fight between students. Workers' compensation denied my claim because they said I'd put myself at risk unnecessarily. Couldn't work, couldn't pay rent, was about to lose everything. They kept me housed for 3 months while I healed and fought the denial. That's 3 months of my life I got back, 3 months of dignity I kept, because someone cared enough to help. Robert Jackson, a 33-year-old single father with 5 kids and the exhausted look of someone who'd been running on empty for years. My factory closed without warning. 30 years that place had been operating then. One day they just locked the doors and told us all to go home. 5 kids to feed, no savings because factory work doesn't pay enough for savings, no prospects because who's hiring a 40-hour-a-week factory worker with no other skills? They gave me groceries for 2 months, paid for job training in HVAC repair, helped with childcare so I could attend the training. I start my new job on Monday because of them. My kids get to stay together in one house because of them. Each family shared their story, 30 seconds to a minute of raw truth. No prepared remarks carefully vetted by lawyers. No talking points designed to hit emotional notes. Just people describing how help came when they needed it most. How dignity was preserved when the world wanted to strip it away. How one phone call had changed the trajectory of their entire lives. By the time they finished, tears streaked faces throughout the room. Even some of the hardened reporters who'd covered tragedies and scandals for decades looked moved, their professional cynicism cracking under the weight of so much genuine gratitude and relief. Patricia Chen stood with her laptop and a thumb drive, her lawyer's face showing no emotion but her voice carrying absolute certainty. I have here irrefutable evidence that the documents accusing Marcus Reed of embezzlement are sophisticated forgeries created specifically to destroy this foundation and these people's reputations. She projected her analysis on the screen behind them, technical data that most people couldn't fully understand, but that carried the weight of expertise. Digital forensics analysis conducted by 3 independent experts shows these documents were created last Tuesday at 11:47 p.m. The computer used is registered to Nathan Hartwell. The IP address traces directly to Hartwell Industries Executive Offices, floor 34, Nathan Hartwell's private office. The routing numbers lead to shell companies that were registered but never actually activated, that never moved any money, that exist only on paper. And most tellingly, the Social Security number on these documents doesn't match Marcus Reed's actual Social Security number. It's off by exactly 1 digit, a small error that suggests whoever created these documents had access to databases but not to the actual SSN itself. Patricia's voice turned to pure steel. I'm turning all of this evidence over to the State Attorney General for immediate investigation into fraud, fabricating evidence, and attempted criminal frame-up. These are serious federal crimes that carry prison sentences of 5 to 10 years. I'm also filing civil suits on behalf of both Marcus Reed and Elena Hartwell for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and interference with business relations. The room erupted. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing like lightning, chaos breaking loose like a dam bursting under too much pressure. Nathan Hartwell stood abruptly, his face a mask of cold fury barely held in check, and walked out without a word. The door slammed behind him with enough force to make people flinch. But Catherine Hartwell stayed seated, her face carefully neutral, but her eyes following Elena with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read from where he stood. After the worst of the chaos died down and some reporters left to file stories before their competitors, Catherine slowly stood. The room fell silent instantly, everyone watching to see what the Hartwell matriarch would do. She walked to the front with measured steps that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else, but somehow felt obligated to be here. She stopped directly in front of Elena. Mother and daughter, eye to eye for the first time in months, maybe years, really looking at each other without the buffer of corporate meetings or family dinners designed to avoid real conversation. You gave up everything for this. Catherine's voice was quiet but carried in the silent room. Elena's voice was steady, though Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. Yes. Your company, your reputation, your position in society, any chance at a normal life with someone from your own social circle who understands your world. I didn't give it up, Mother. Elena's voice was quiet but firm, each word carefully chosen. I exchanged it for something better, something that actually matters instead of just looking impressive on paper. Catherine's lips thinned in that way that meant she was holding back stronger words. I raised you to be strong, to be successful, to never let anyone, especially a man, derail your ambitions or make you settle for less than you deserve. You raised me to be cold, Elena said, and there was no malice in it. No anger, just statement of fact delivered with the clarity of someone who'd spent months thinking about this. To measure my worth in dollars and market capitalization. To see people as assets or liabilities. To calculate every relationship based on what I could gain from it. And I was miserable, Mother. Successful, yes. Powerful, yes. But completely, utterly miserable. Waking up every day to a life that looked perfect from outside but felt empty on the inside. She glanced at Marcus, drew strength from his presence. Marcus didn't derail my ambitions. He helped me find better ones, ones that actually make me happy instead of just making me look successful. Ones that help people instead of just helping my stock portfolio. Catherine studied her daughter for a long, silent moment that felt like it stretched for hours. Something shifted in her expression, not warmth exactly, not acceptance in any traditional sense, but a thawing, an acknowledgement that perhaps the world was more complicated than her worldview allowed. She turned to Marcus, and he braced himself for condemnation or dismissal, or the kind of cutting remark Catherine was known for in business circles. You understand that my children are my legacy. That everything I built, everything I sacrificed, everything I fought for over 40 years was meant to secure their futures and give them opportunities I never had growing up poor in rural Oregon. Marcus chose his words carefully, knowing this moment mattered. I understand that love looks different to different people, Mrs. Hartwell. And I understand that you've spent your life trying to protect Elena in the way you know how. But Elena doesn't need securing or protecting from the world anymore. She needs to be seen, really seen, not as an extension of your legacy or the family business or anyone's expectations, but as her own person with her own values and her own choices about what kind of life she wants to live. He met Catherine's eyes directly. And yes, ma'am, I see her. Every single day. I see her compassion and her brilliance and her determination to make the world better. I see her struggling to figure out who she is separate from who she was raised to be. And I see her becoming the person she was always meant to be instead of the person everyone else wanted her to be. Catherine was silent for what felt like an eternity. I don't approve of this. I don't understand it. It goes against everything I believe about how the world works and what matters in life. Everyone in the room held their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But, Catherine continued, and that one word changed everything. I can see my daughter is happier than she's been in years. Perhaps decades, if I'm being honest with myself. Perhaps that matters more than I thought it did. Perhaps I've been wrong about what success actually looks like. She turned to leave, paused at the door, looked back one more time. Don't make me regret not fighting harder to stop this, Elena. Prove to me that throwing away everything I built for you was worth it. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't condemnation either. For Catherine Hartwell, legendary businesswoman known for crushing competitors without mercy, it was practically a blessing. After the reporters finally left and the families dispersed with promises to stay in touch and offers to help however they could, Marcus and Elena found themselves alone in the empty community center. Afternoon sun streamed through the windows, dust motes dancing in the light like tiny stars, the space feeling peaceful after hours of chaos and emotion. Elena leaned against the wall, suddenly looking exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness into emotional depletion. That was the most insane thing I've ever done. That was necessary. That was right. Marcus walked toward her, and the words he'd been holding back for months suddenly demanded to be spoken. He was tired of careful distance, tired of pretending his feelings were anything less than what they were. And I'm tired of hiding, tired of pretending we're just business partners or friends who care about each other. Let them look at us. Let them investigate every penny and every moment we've spent together. They won't find anything except two people trying to do good in a world that's forgotten what that looks like. He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of silver in her gray-blue eyes. I love you, Elena. I'm in love with you. Have been for weeks, maybe months if I'm being honest with myself. And I'm done pretending that's something to hide or be ashamed of because it doesn't fit someone else's narrative about how relationships are supposed to work. Her eyes widened, filling with tears that caught the afternoon light. Marcus, we've known each other 4 months. He continued, not letting her interrupt because he needed to say this while he had the courage. 4 months that feel like years because of everything we've been through together. I pulled you from a burning car. You gave me a house for my daughter. We started a foundation that's changed nearly 90 lives. We fell in love while the whole city watched and judged and tried to tear us apart with gossip and accusations. I think we're past worrying about what conventional timelines look like or what people will say about us moving too fast. Elena laughed through her tears, the sound breaking free like something that had been trapped too long. You're right. We're so far past conventional it's not even visible in the rearview mirror anymore. She reached up to cup his face, her hands gentle despite their trembling. I love you too. So much it terrifies me because I've never felt this way about anyone. So much I gave up a company worth billions without a second thought when the board made me choose. So much I'm willing to face whatever comes next, investigations, scandals, judgment, whatever, as long as you're beside me while it happens. Marcus kissed her, then right there in the empty community center, with afternoon sun streaming through windows and the ghosts of 17 families' testimonies still hanging in the air. It felt like something breaking free, like the first breath after being underwater too long, like finally coming home after years of wandering. The fallout from the press conference was swift but ultimately satisfying in ways neither of them had dared to hope for. Nathan resigned from Hartwell Industries 3 days later under pressure from the board, who didn't want the liability of keeping him on after the evidence of fraud became public. He managed to avoid federal prosecution only because Catherine used every connection and favor she'd accumulated over 40 years. to negotiate a deal resignation restitution to cover legal fees and 5 years probation in exchange for no jail time. Family loyalty had its limits, but those limits apparently stopped short of letting her son go to prison. The foundation's reputation didn't just recover, it exploded. The press conference testimony went viral, shared millions of times across social media platforms with hashtags like Real Help and #DignityMatters trending for days. Donations increased tenfold, people moved by the raw honesty and the family's genuine gratitude. Volunteers came out of nowhere offering time and skills. Other cities reached out wanting to replicate the model. 2 weeks after the press conference, Sophie was doing homework at the kitchen table when Elena came by with something she wanted to show them. "Can you both come with me somewhere? It's a surprise." Marcus and Sophie exchanged glances. "Is it a good surprise?" Sophie asked with the suspicion of a 7-year-old who'd been through enough changes recently. "I hope so," Elena said, and there was nervousness in her voice that Marcus found endearing. She drove them 3 blocks to a house Marcus had never really noticed before, despite passing it regularly. Craftsman style with a wide front porch, cozy and well-maintained, but not ostentatious. A yard with actual grass instead of gravel. A neighborhood that was safe but not wealthy, the kind of place where kids played in the street and neighbors knew each other's names. "I bought it," Elena said as she unlocked the front door. "3 weeks ago. I've been working on it since then." She led them inside. The living room had comfortable furniture in warm colors. Nothing that screamed expensive, but everything chosen with care. The kitchen had actual counter space and appliances that worked. There were 2 bedrooms upstairs, one clearly designed as a child's room with built-in bookshelves and a reading nook. In the backyard, a swing set waited next to a garden bed ready for planting. A patio with a table where families could eat together. A small shed that Marcus recognized as the kind used for storing tools and lawn equipment. Sophie's eyes were huge, taking it all in with wonder. "Is this for us? If you want it to be," Elena said softly. "I've been working on this for weeks with help from Mrs. Walsh and James and about 17 YouTube videos on what normal family homes are supposed to look like, because I never really lived in one growing up." She turned to Marcus, vulnerability clear on her face. "I want this to be a place where Sophie can come over whenever she wants, where she feels comfortable and safe. Where you both can escape when your house feels too small or too full of memories. Where we can figure out what this looks like, us together building something real instead of just talking about building something real." Sophie looked at Marcus for permission, reading his face the way she'd learned to do since Sarah died. He nodded, throat too tight for words, and Sophie ran outside to the swing set, her squeals of joy floating back through the open door. Alone in the kitchen, Elena's nerves showed fully now, her hands twisting together. "Is this too much? Am I moving too fast, assuming too much about what you want? I just keep thinking about what you said at the press conference about not hiding, about building something real. And I wanted to show you that I meant it, that this isn't just about the foundation or about scandal or about any of that. It's about us building a life together, if that's what you want too." Marcus kissed her, then stopping the nervous spiral before it could build momentum. "It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I have one condition, though." Elena's eyebrows rose, wariness mixing with hope. "Which is—" The words came before he could second-guess them or talk himself out of it, or list all the reasons this was too fast. "Marry me." Elena froze, her eyes going wide. "What? Marry me? Not because we have to, not because of the scandal or to silence critics or to prove anything to anyone watching, but because I love you and I want to build a life with you. Because Sophie adores you and you adore her and she needs stability and family. Because every day with you feels like I'm keeping the promise I made to Sarah, to live fully, to love openly, to not let fear or caution or other people's opinions make me small." He took her hands, felt them trembling in his. "I know it's fast. I know people will say we're crazy or rushing, or that this is some kind of rebound, or that we're from different worlds that don't mix. But I also know what actually matters, how you treat people, how you fight for what's right, How you look at my daughter like she's precious instead of an inconvenience. I know I don't want to spend another day wondering what we could be when I already know what we are." Elena's eyes filled with tears that spilled over. "I don't have a ring to give you back. I don't have anything planned or romantic or—" "Neither do I. We'll figure out rings and plans and all of that later. Right now, I just need to know if you want this as much as I do." "People will say we're moving too fast," she whispered. "That this is a disaster waiting to happen. That we're going to regret rushing into this." "Let them say it." Marcus squeezed her hands. "We'll prove them wrong by still being together in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. By building something real that lasts instead of something flashy that crumbles." She laughed through tears, the sound bright and free. "You're absolutely ridiculous. You know that proposing in a kitchen with no ring while my daughter plays on the swing set in the backyard? Is that a no?" "It's a yes. God help me, it's a yes." She pulled him closer. "On one condition, we do this right. No press, no spectacle, no turning our relationship into content for people to consume. Just us, Sophie, Mrs. Walsh, James, Tommy, whoever actually matters to us in real life. Small and real and completely ours. Deal." They kissed in Elena's kitchen, soon to be their kitchen, while Sophie's laughter drifted in from the backyard, and Marcus felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled since Sarah died. Not replacement, not forgetting, but moving forward into something new while honoring what had been. 8 months later, on a spring afternoon that felt like the world giving its blessing, they married in Mrs. Walsh's backyard under a simple wooden arbor that Tommy and James had built together. 30 people who actually mattered. Sophie as flower girl, her gap-toothed grin visible under a fancy dress she'd picked out herself, clutching a basket of wildflowers picked from the vacant lot down the street that morning. Tommy Chen stood as Marcus's best man, his weathered face proud and emotional. James Cho stood on Elena's side, having become more friend than assistant over the months. A local judge who'd been helped by the foundation during a rough patch officiated, his voice warm and genuine. Catherine came, and Marcus watched her arrival with held breath. She looked initially like she was attending a funeral, her face carefully neutral, her posture stiff. But she stayed for the entire ceremony, and when the judge pronounced them married and they kissed, Catherine smiled, small and brief but genuine, before quickly composing herself back into businesswoman neutrality. Nathan didn't come, but he had sent a note 2 weeks before. "I was wrong about you, about both of you, about what matters and what doesn't. Forgiveness isn't something I expect or probably deserve, but perhaps someday understanding. Perhaps someday I'll figure out what you figured out, that there are things money can't buy and shouldn't try to. Congratulations. I mean that. N." It wasn't much, but it was something. A crack in the wall, a possibility of eventual reconciliation, maybe someday when wounds had healed enough. Sophie's speech made everyone cry, her 7-year-old voice clear and certain in the afternoon quiet. "My mommy told my daddy not to close his heart. She said he needed to keep loving people even when it was hard, even when it hurt, because that's what makes us good instead of just okay. And now he's opening his heart for Mom Elena. And I think that's the most beautiful thing ever." She turned to look at Elena with fierce affection. "Thank you for making my daddy smile again the way he used to smile with Mommy, and for making really good pancakes on Saturday mornings, and for reading me bedtime stories even when you're tired, and for being my mom too, even though I already had one mom who died. Mommy told me people have enough love for more than one mom, that love doesn't run out or get used up, it just grows bigger. So thank you for being my second mom. I love you." Marcus had to excuse himself, overwhelmed by emotion. Tommy found him by Mrs. Walsh's garden, breathing deep and trying to compose himself. "You okay?" "Yeah, just Sarah would have loved her. Would have loved seeing Sophie so happy." "She would have," Tommy agreed. "And she'd be proud of you, for keeping your promise, for staying soft in a hard world, for finding love again instead of closing yourself off." Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. 5 years later, the anniversary of the rescue had become Reed Fund Day, an annual gala that had grown far beyond what they'd imagined. The convention center held 500 people easily, and even that was getting tight. The foundation had helped 2,847 families. The number was displayed on a screen behind the podium, updated in real time as new families received help. They'd inspired similar organizations in 12 cities across the country, each one adapting the model to local needs but keeping the core principle: help fast, help with dignity. No strings attached. Sophie was 12 now, volunteering at the foundation office every weekend, answering phones and helping organize case files. She wanted to be a social worker when she grew up, maybe go into family services, help kids who'd lost parents the way she had. Marcus watched her across the room, talking animatedly with other volunteers, and felt pride so intense it hurt. Rachel Torres approached during the cocktail hour, her nursing scrubs traded for a simple dress. "I wanted to tell you I'm opening my own clinic for low-income families who can't afford regular medical care. Foundation model: help first, paperwork later." Marcus felt his eyes burn. The circle completing itself, help given coming back around in ways no one had predicted. "Rachel, that's incredible. It's because of you. Because you showed me that helping people doesn't have to be complicated or bureaucratic. It just has to be real." A veteran reporter approached as the evening wound down, someone who'd covered them from the beginning. "5 years ago, you two faced incredible scrutiny. Your relationship was called everything from scandal to scam to disaster. Do you ever regret how unconventional it all was? How it started?" Elena looked at Marcus, and in her eyes he saw everything they'd been through. The struggle, the scandal, the choice to love despite the cost. Sophie laughing across the room, foundation staff members helping families, the life they'd built together from fire and rain and impossible odds. Not for a single second. Never. What would you say to people who still doubt your motives or think this was all some kind of setup? Marcus's answer was simple, earned through years of proving it true. "I'd say actions speak louder than gossip. 2,847 families got the help they needed when they needed it most. That's not a scandal. That's what love looks like when it refuses to be bought or sold or reduced to a transaction." That night, after the gala ended and the crowds dispersed and the convention center staff began breaking down tables and packing up decorations, they sat on the porch of the house Elena had bought 5 years ago. The house that had become their home, where they'd fought and laughed and built a life together, one day at a time. Sophie was upstairs, asleep, safe and loved, and certain of her place in the world in a way Marcus had feared she'd never feel again after Sarah died. "Do you think we've kept our promises?" Elena asked quietly, her head on his shoulder. "To Sarah, to ourselves, to everyone who believed in us when it would have been easier not to." Marcus thought about Sophie growing into a young woman who knew how to love without fear, who believed in helping others because she'd seen her parents do it. About families, changed lives, rebuilt, hope restored where there had been only despair. About Catherine volunteering at the foundation once a month now, her cold pragmatism slowly thawing into something almost like warmth as she saw the actual impact of their work. About Rachel inspiring other nurses to see patients as people first. About a community that had been strengthened by witnessing two people choose kindness over convenience, love over cynicism, action over mere words. "Yeah, I think we have. I think we're still keeping them every day." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from knowing someone so thoroughly that words become optional. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more families needing help, more critics finding reasons to doubt, more work to be done in a world that never stopped producing suffering and need. But tonight they had each other, their daughter, their home, their mission, and the quiet certainty that they'd made the right choices even when those choices had cost them everything they thought they needed. "You know what I realized?" Marcus's voice was soft in the darkness, barely louder than the breeze rustling leaves. "What?" That night in the rain when I pulled you from that car and had no idea who you were or what it would lead to. I wasn't just saving your life. You were saving mine, too. I just didn't know it yet. Didn't know I needed saving until you showed me what living instead of just surviving could look like. Elena squeezed his hand, her wedding ring catching the porch light. Different worlds. Building a new one where we both fit perfectly. Silence fell between them, comfortable and complete. Then Elena laughed softly, the sound carrying affection and amazement in equal measure. I'm glad my car crashed that night. That's a terrible thing to say. Terrible but true. Best accident that ever happened to both of us. Worst night of my life that led to the best 5 years of my life. In a city that too often forgot to see people instead of problems, that reduced suffering to statistics and help to bureaucracy. Marcus Reed and Elena Hartwell had built something that would outlast them both. Not an empire of wealth and power measured in quarterly reports and stock prices, but a legacy of dignity and respect measured in changed lives and restored hope. A proof that kindness mattered, that mercy had value beyond any price tag, that helping people without strings attached could change the world one family at a time. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything that mattered.